How do you set out your goals and actually achieve them? Now, of course, I'm going based off past experience and what I do now. And I've learned obviously many different things, and I've changed the way I set out my goals, and so on and so forth. But the way I set out my goals now, and I am extremely confident that it's the best goal setting method as of now for myself anyway. But I'm confident, of course, it would work for you. Very simple. Keep it very simple. You don't want to overcomplicate goal setting. Two things. First thing, you want to break it down into smaller steps. I'm sure you've heard of this, absolutely, and it works. That's why a lot of people talk about it. You've heard it a lot because it actually works. You want to break down your goal into smaller steps, little W's, or small wins is what people call it nowadays. Let's say, think of an example. Let's say your weekly paycheck is $500. You get $500 a week, and your goal for the week is to save $400. What you can do is break this down into smaller, more achievable steps. Thing is, of course, I've heard this before as well. People don't specify how many steps. As many as it takes. As many steps as it takes in order for yourself, your conscious and your subconscious mind to go, okay, yep, this is attainable. To make it go from a goal that seems unrealistic to a goal that now sounds actually achievable. So let's say you want to save $400 out of a $500 paycheck for the week. What I would do, and again, you don't have to follow this specifically, and of course this isn't just for money, saving money, this is for any goal. But what I would do in this situation, just trying to think, maybe you would write out, and it doesn't have to be a step-by-step like tutorial. You can just write things in sort of step-by-step format. Let's say the first thing you write is your guaranteed expenses, or things that you know are going to go out of your account in that week, regardless of how hard you try to save your money. I'm talking fuel, I'm talking groceries, maybe you've got some weekly subscriptions, although most things are monthly nowadays, but some things are weekly subscriptions. And maybe you like to treat yourself or take out your partner or a family member or a friend, whatever it may be. And that's something that's non-negotiable for the week as well. Let's say altogether, $80. Now, it's, for fuel, groceries, and treating yourself, $80 is quite cheap, of course, but it's an example. Okay, let's say guaranteed money that's going to go out regardless of how hard you try to save your money, $80. So now you've broken it down to make it seem at least more clear to you, okay? Okay, now I know no matter how hard I try, I'm aiming for $420 saved for the week. Okay, well, I'm actually trying to save $400, so sweet. Now I'm $20 over my target. Okay, well, you try and go throughout the week without spending any more than that. You're going to want to treat yourself, maybe go out or buy some clothes or whatever, right? Okay, instead of going out on the weekend, I'm going to stay inside. I'm going to stay inside and watch a movie. Or instead of going out for Friday night dinner, because I usually go out twice a week for dinner, I'm going to stay inside and home cook a meal. Something like that, okay? So now you're breaking it down into smaller steps to make it's still attainable, but to make a goal sound somewhat achievable to now, okay, yeah, I can definitely do this. I've used this analogy before. It's like making a cookie. You never get given a cookie dough mix or a cookie mix. Mind blank. A cookie mix, okay? And that's it. You just get the ingredients and that's it. You're like, oh, well, what do I do? Do I just chuck it in the oven? No, you get given a step-by-step process, right? Imagine you were given a cookie mix box, right? Unless you're a baker or a chef or somebody who has made cookies before, you're not going to have a clue. You're going to go, how the hell am I supposed to do this? But now you look on the side of the box and there's step-by-step broken down instructions and you go, and then guess what? You made a cookie. You made some cookies that you never thought you could have made just because there's now a step-by-step process. It's broken down into achievable chunks. That's how I set out my goals. Now, I usually do two things, and that was the first thing, step by step. And the second thing, I kind of was just talking about it, but you've got to make them. You've got to make the goals somewhat achievable, somewhat more realistic than you think. And I hope you know me by now. If you're new to the channel or new to the podcast, new to me, welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in, of course. But if you have watched my content before and or you know me, I really do hope that you understand by now that I'm all for setting your goals just so incredibly high it seems unrealistic, but it is. It's achievable, right? I've used the saying before, shoot for the moon. If you don't make it, you'll at least land amongst the stars. But I'm talking crazy goals that will, I want to go into a bit of science into this, but I'll just give an example. Let's say, your goal is, I'm going to make $1 billion in 6 months, let alone a year, right? Well, I want to make it very extreme. To you, that might, well, to other people, that sounds ridiculous, of course, but even achievable goals sound ridiculous to small-minded, unmotivated people, of course. But me saying out loud to myself, I'm going to make $1 billion in 6 months, my conscious mind, my outer body is going, yeah, that's achievable, because I'm speaking it. It's those words are coming out of me externally. Your subconscious mind, which is far more powerful than your conscious mind, by the way, it knows that's not achievable. Your subconscious mind is going, nah, it knows that's not happening. If your subconscious mind doesn't believe you, it's not going to happen. Now, you may be thinking, well, how do I know what's achievable and what's not? You know what's achievable. Even if the best spot to be in is something that seems achievable, but not at the same time. Like, I want to make $1 million in a year. It's like, especially if you've never made over 100 grand in a year, that's very difficult. That is something very difficult to do. But is it impossible? No. Is it far more achievable than $1 billion in 6 months or even a year? Absolutely. You're in that sort of zone of that's going to be very, very difficult to attain. Very difficult. Is it even achievable? I mean, I think it is, but, I just got to work really hard. You never mentioned there that it wasn't achievable. You know that it is. It just requires hard work. So I hope you understand what I mean by that. Like, you need to set somewhat realistic goals. And trust me, your mind and your body will definitely know the difference between something that's unrealistic and something that is realistic, but just very difficult to attain. How do I actually go about achieving these goals? You've heard it a lot, especially from myself. But again, I'm a big believer in, if something's cliche or if something is said a lot or spoken about, over and over and over again, there's obviously a reason for that. And I'm going to give a very cliche sort of, or I've heard this before, answer, because it's so true and it works. Your motivation is going to dissipate. Your motivation is going to go out the window. It requires discipline, relentlessness, perspicacity. You've probably heard that from Andrew Tate, but it's a great word. And another one. I'm just saying these two because Andrew Tate. Indefatigability. But in all seriousness, it requires discipline because your motivation is going to go out the window. It is. You've got to be relentless. You've got to be ignorant of those people who tell you otherwise. You're not going to make it. That's unrealistic. You got to get shut the fuck up. I'm not listening to you. And you've got to be consistent. I say that a lot. Have to be consistent. Without consistency, everything else goes out the window. Everything else goes out the window. And you've also got to be patient. You've got to acquire the attribute of patience. And I talked about this quite a bit, a fair chunk of the last episode of this podcast. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. And a fair chunk of it was about patience. And I used the analogy of watering a plant. You get a new plant. Let's say you just get the seed. You plant the seed, you give it sunlight, you give it fresh air, you give it water, you give it everything it needs to grow for a day. The whole day, you're like, oh, I've given this plant everything, but it's not growing. I know, I understand. It's not growing. You need to give it time. You are giving this plant everything it needs and more, but you also need to be patient. And this is where consistency comes in again. If you give a plant everything it needs, again, the water, the sunlight, the fresh air, the soil, if you give it everything it needs for a day, a week, and then eventually you see, it's barely even growing, it's not even moving, and then you stop giving it what it needs, it's going to die, it's not going to grow. So with consistency and patience, along with all of the necessities, the things that it needs, the things that it requires, that's where that plant grows and blossoms. Question number 2. How do you ignore the hate? Now, I've been getting not so much hate, more just, I put my face out there for the world to see. Now, I wish the whole world saw it, because then I'd be getting a lot of views. But, my face is on social media, therefore, hypothetically, the whole world, because pretty much the whole world's on social media nowadays, can see me. And I put out maybe, you could say, controversial stuff, opinionated stuff. Not everything I put out there on social media is factual. A lot of it is my opinion from experiences. I'm never going to put out on social media something that I just think. Oh, I think this is right just because. No, I'm always going to have evidence behind it, whether that be scientifically backed evidence or evidence from past experience. But everybody has different experiences. So, of course, I do get the odd comment here and there that it's like, you're wrong. Shut the fuck up. I'm not saying this back, people, I've never had anyone say shut the fuck up, but in that sort of way. And people just saying, mate, you're wrong, shut up, you're spreading false information. I posted something on Christmas, basically talking about how, if you missed a workout or if you, didn't eat, if you didn't follow your diet on Christmas, that's okay. It's a day off, it's a special day, blah, blah, blah. Some kid was I say kid because he was literally younger than me, going, this is what pussies say, you're a pussy, blah, 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 blah. And I played sports. I played sports at a high level for not at a high level for 12 years, maybe more like 5-6 years, but you're gonna get hate doing other things as well. I'm not just talking about social media here. So I have received my fair share of hate as of now. Am I gonna receive more in the future? Yeah, and I can't wait because it builds resilience. I've talked about that in the past as well, of course. How do I ignore it? Now, I am not to toot my own horn at all. I don't like to be a cocky person or anything like that. I would say I'm quite a resilient person. I've had to train that. I've had to build that resilience. Naturally, I am maybe more of a sensitive person, but that's just who I am, I guess. But I am very good at ignoring hate and criticism. Not criticism. I don't mind criticism, especially if it's constructive. You need to take on board constructive criticism. But just straight up hate and... I'm trying to think of another word. We'll just stick with hate. I think that's probably the best word to use, and it's the word that was used in the question anyway. I'm very good at ignoring it, and you will be surprised how good you are naturally at ignoring most of the hate yourself anyway. A lot of people think if they've never really put themselves out there enough to experience hate, they're scared. They're like, what are people going to think? Blah, blah, blah. First of all, most people don't care. Second of all, most people that give you shit and give you hate are below your level, or haven't made it, or are immature. Those kind of people. The bums. Most people that hate on you are bums anyway. But there are, of course, I'd say 80% of hate is fairly easy to ignore. You just, in one ear, whoop, out the other. Simple. Some people are just ridiculously good at being trolls and picking out little spots that they know would hurt you, a little, hit a little too close to home, as you would say, right? This ties into, I don't want to go straight into stoicism, but being able to handle your emotions properly, being able to breathe, again, acknowledge, okay, somebody said something, somebody's actions have made me gone, I just want to react like that. I want to hit him. I want to say something back. Being able to just breathe. Okay, this is very, but I'm not saying every single time somebody says something or somebody does something, you go. That's more of it's more of an analogy to say when you experience hate, that hits a little bit more personal than most of the hate that you usually get. Just remember that straight away you're in the heat. You're in the heat of the moment, and straight away when you experience that, your emotional reactions are taken over. You've got to just, whatever way works for you, just relax. Just take a second to think of a response, or maybe it's an online. Maybe somebody's posted a comment. You've got amples. You've got so much amount of time, an ample amount of time to relax, right? But let's say you're in an actual conversation with somebody. All right, it's not behind a screen. Okay, you don't have hours to hide, or not to hide, but to think of a response. Blah blah blah. Just remember, if somebody is giving you hate, and it's right there in the moment, and you're in the heat of things, just do whatever you can just to relax. Just relax as much as you possibly can, or you will 99% of the time you will regret what you say or what you do. So that was, I went sort of not off topic, but obviously the questions related to how do I ignore hate, mainly online, but in person, if somebody was to say something or do something to me personally, don't take 20 seconds to breathe and relax, because you're gonna look weird, right? But just take an extra second just to acknowledge, okay, I'm pissed off right now, but just relax just for a second. Another thing I'll say as well, even if this is an in-person thing, somebody said something to your face, just a simple, very simple breath. What did that take? 3 seconds? Can maybe go to 5 seconds. One thing I'll say as well, which I think is absolutely fascinating, we breathe 22,000 times on average a day. Taking that one extra breath for only a few seconds can make you 100 times more calm, more thoughtful, and make you feel like a totally different person. So if I was to give a really specific answer as to how do I ignore the very difficult to ignore hate, I guess you could say, breathe. Speak to yourself for a second. Just relax. Because one of the main things that I'm still continuing to learn, but I have learned a lot as of recently, I myself, coming from somebody who is actually an emotional thinker, don't underestimate the power of just taking an extra second to think about something logically, or to act upon something logically. So how do I ignore hate? 80% of it, very simple to ignore. You get used to it. Eventually you can bump that number up to probably 90% of the hate. Once you get used to it, it's like, this is nothing. 5 to 10%, yeah, maybe it hits a little too close to home. It's personal. Okay, breathe. Take a little time to yourself. Obviously, it depends on the situation. If it's behind a screen, you've got so much time to breathe. Think of a response. Think more logically. If it's more of a, in the moment sort of thing, just take an extra second just to speak to yourself, or just to breathe, or just to say nothing. Okay, just find a way to get out of that emotional reaction state. Question 3: is it better to go into business solo or with a friend? Now, I don't have a massive amount of experience in terms of going into business with a friend. So I'm going to talk more about the things I've heard and things I've seen as well. So, do I have some sort of experience of going into business with a friend? Personally, personal experience, no, but I've heard stories and I've seen things happen. And I've actually been into businesses or attempted businesses, started businesses up solo. So I do have the solo experience. The risk versus reward factor is the main and the major thing, problem, issue, factor. It fails to say factor again. The risk is so incredibly high as opposed to the reward. Think of it this way. You go into business with your best friend or a relative, and the business is successful and it works out exactly how you planned it to work out. Awesome, great. Now you live your life how you wanted it to be. Cool. That's awesome. It's, I'm happy that worked out for you. But it's nothing amazing. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Like it's nothing extraordinary, right? You could have gone into business with a random stranger and that outcome still happened. Cool, good on you. But the risk is so outstanding that it just completely swallows up the reward if you were to compare the two. The complete risk of you go into business with a friend, that business is solely reliant on you and your friend's relationship or you and your relative's relationship. Your relationship fucks up, the business fucks up. The business goes to shit, there is huge potential of your relationship going to shit. Your business is solely reliant on your relationship with that person. And this is based off things I've heard and I've seen, not off personal experience. So please take what I say here with a pinch of salt. The reason why I took on this question is because I believe I do have enough experience to answer this question, but please just take what I say here with a pinch of salt, okay? I would suggest going into business solo. You mess up, that's on you, okay? Your partner messes up, it could screw up the whole business. He or she could ruin the whole business and you've done everything right, they screw up, boom. That's your relationship gone, that's the business gone, boom. Messed up. So I would go back again to the first point. It's just the risk versus reward factor. The risk is just so incredibly high compared to the reward you would get out of it if you went into business with a friend and you succeeded. Question number 4. Best books to read for self-improvement. Now I've got a list of my top 5 here. I'll just double check there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 books here. I'm just going to list them straight up. We've got Be Bold by Alexis Fernandez, Lives of the Stoics by Ryan Holiday, Relentless by Tim S. Grover, Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. First one, Be Bold by Alexis Fernandez. Sort of, the title gives it away. How to become a little more extroverted, a little more outgoing, and become more bold, take more risks. This was a book that was bought for me that when I truly started my reading journey, and when reading is difficult nowadays, especially obviously because of social media, and I'm not going to go down that path again, but I've talked about it before, with the attention span that people have around my age and this sort of generation, it's difficult to pick up a book and read it. But once I picked up this book, I could not stop reading it. I think part of that, or a main factor, is because of the format of the book and how easy it is to read. It's got lists, there's not too many words on each of the pages, and it's just very, very informative. And the book itself is very bold. It's bright orange, and it's just Be Bold, Alexis Fernandez, boom, that's it. Straightforward, to the point, very informative book. Last of the Stoics by Ryan Holiday. Now, you may recognize the name. You search him up, I can almost guarantee you'd recognize the face. He's sort of the face of Stoicism nowadays, like the modern Stoic. I think his Instagram social media handle is Daily Stoic. You probably recognize that name too. Now, this is sort of an entry into Stoicism itself, or well, rather ancient Stoicism, like ancient Rome, ancient Greek time. But it takes you through from the beginning of Stoicism when it first, arised to the end of ancient Stoicism, and all of the Stoics that sort of filled that gap. And it gives you a whole backstory and the legacy that they left before they passed. And there's bits and pieces here and there throughout the book that you can actually incorporate into your daily life. So that's why I've added it into this list of best self-improvement books. It's not purely about Stoicism, but if you do want to look into if you do want sort of a book that's an entry into Stoicism, this is a great book. That and Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, that is beautiful work of art. Relentless by Tim S. Grover. Relentless is basically a book of how professional athletes took their physical and psychological or mental game to a whole another level, and how you can do it too, not just for sports, but for any aspect, any niche, any endeavor in life. And the reason why I love this book is because it's by Tim S. Grover, who was the guy who trained the physical and mental side of the game to the athletes rather. It's the guy himself, but the athletes that he worked with, just to name a couple, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Enough said. I'm sure that sold me. I'm sure that sells you too. So there's parts in the book where he says, oh, this and this and this and this worked for them. This took their game to a whole nother level. Two, arguably one of the greatest, two of the greatest arguably of all time in the NBA, just athletes of all time. If it works for them, imagine what it can do for you. It can work wonders. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's a book that I haven't finished yet. I'm actually not even halfway through, but I think that says something. I'm not even halfway through the book, and I've already learnt so much. Dr. Joe Dispenza is not only a doctor, he's also a bloody wizard. I will say that he knows the ins and outs of the mental side of things. He's got his own meditations, and allows you to put it into very simple words. What I have taken from the book so far is just imagine a future you. Just imagine the wealth that you've acquired. Imagine the success you've attained. Imagine the person that you are. How you can genuinely, through mindfulness and training the mind, how you can genuinely be that person today. It's amazing. 48 Laws of Power. I'm sure we've all heard of that, by Robert Greene. You may have heard of him too. Such an intelligent, intellectual human being, and he's got plenty of other books that I'm willing to pick up as well. I believe he's got one just released called Mastery, which ironic, Makin Mastery podcast. So that'd be interesting. But 48 Laws of Power is amazing because it's genuinely 48 laws. Obviously, you're not going to remember all of them, but it's a great. I don't want to say it's a great entry book. You can read this book at any level. You could have already made it. You could be an Elon Musk and read this book. It is very, very insightful and informative, and it's great if you want to go down the self-improvement path. But just the whole format of it, the whole format of the book is just it's very simple to follow along. It's not chapters or anything. Well, technically there's 48 chapters, put it that way, but it's not a huge book. The book is moved into my room. It was in this studio, it was in this vicinity here. It was just behind me, but it's about it's probably smaller than your hand. It's not a huge book, and the version of the book that I picked up was actually the bigger version. You can get a much smaller, more compact version of the book. So it's very easy to read, follow along, and very, very insightful. Question 5, final question for this episode. What is your nighttime routine? And I'll just be honest. Okay, straight up, it's not sexy. I am hoping and praying you weren't expecting me to have this golden sort of nighttime routine that will change your life forever. Your nighttime routine, it is dependent on what your body requires, and everybody is different. I'll tell you exactly what I do on a nighttime. 8 p.m. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see I have some glasses on my face. Where have these come from? It is past 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. I set a reminder on my phone to repeat every day 8 p.m. to get on my blue light filter glasses. And that is the start of my nighttime routine. Blue light filter glasses are on. Obviously, I'm recording this podcast. Usually my podcast isn't part of the nighttime routine, but it's only once a week. I'll let it slide. I'm joking. I've done everything I needed to do before this anyway. But usually 8 p.m. rolls around, blue light filter glasses. Then for half an hour, I will go through all of my social media. I usually do data analytics once a week in terms of, just measuring up all the data of how everything's gone on across all my social media accounts. And I'll write it down, blah, blah, blah. But every single night for about 15, 20 minutes, I will just scroll through everything and just see what's worked for the day. I usually post two, three times a day. I'll just go through and recap. Okay, this went well. This worked. These hashtags worked. This style of video worked. Reply to comments, whatever. Right, post on my story. That's me done on technology. Most of it anyway. About 80% of it is gone now after about 8:30. After that, pen, paper, and I will sit outside and stargaze and write anything and everything that comes to my mind for about 20 to 30 minutes. That usually takes me to about 9 p.m. Ollie, what are you talking about? It's literally as it sounds. I will sit outside for about 20, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I haven't gone past that time yet. I probably would get a bit bored. But I just write this whole, if you're watching this whole notebook, about 60, 70% of it, it's almost finished. The whole notebook's almost filled up. 60%, 70% of it is just stuff that I write in a night time. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen the advice that I give I put out on my stories. If you want to look back at them, or if you've missed them, they are on my highlights on my Instagram profile page. All of those, apart from maybe 1, 2, or 3 that I've sourced from elsewhere, all of those have come from me sitting outside writing things that come into my mind. Amazing. And how do I get those ideas? It's a form of meditation to me. It's a form of mental recovery. Mental recovery is something that I've talked about in the previous podcast as well. So, write, meditation. That's my form of meditation anyway. And it gets 2 things. 2 birds, 1 stone. I get to write and meditate and stargaze. Three things in one. After that, I am quite a big eater, especially I crave food at night, so I usually have my supper, which is a smoothie on a night time. Power smoothie. I'll do a separate video on my smoothie. I've put it on my story before, but I'll make a full on video about it as well. And then, if I haven't read in the morning, which I usually do, I will catch up and read at night, or I'll read some extra at night. Sometimes I'm getting caught up on the book, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to read tonight as well as what I read this morning. I usually just read for 20 to 30 minutes. That's a little tip I would give. Instead of setting a page target, just set a timer, 20, 30 minutes. So you're not heavily reliant on, I'm on page 29. Cool, just one more page. Maybe you've done that one more page. I'm like, damn, I want to keep going on. I want to continue. Just do a timer instead. Trust me on that one. Then I will finally get some nice relaxing music on. If I haven't already, sometimes I'll play it and put it on as I'm stargazing and doing my form of meditation and writing, of course. Get on my music, and for the final 20 to 30 minutes before I finally turn off everything and go to bed, I will usually just let myself be bored. I know that may seem and sound very crazy to you, but it is extremely beneficial if you do a bit of research. I'm happy to do some content on that as well if you're interested. But it is actually beneficial just to let your mind wander and just be bored. It is good for you, and it is somewhat intriguing intriguing because you let your mind sort of take over your body for some time. For example, I have a Lego set that has. I love my Lego. I've got a Lego set that hasn't been built yet. I've got it as a gift for Christmas. And I've been purposely. I could smash that bad boy out in a day, easy. But I've purposely been doing it bit by bit. Because that's something that I've been doing on a night. But all electronics are off. Done my meditation. I've had my last little bit to eat, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do before I go to bed? Most people are on their phones or watching TV. I've got nothing, so I just let my mind wander. Usually, it'll go to the Lego. Sometimes I will clean up my room a little bit. Sometimes I'll write some more stuff. Crazy things happen, and it's just intriguing to see where your mind wanders. And of course, you'll have some thoughts, and maybe oh, we should build some Lego, and then it takes over your body, and then all of a sudden you're building Lego. Oh, we should read. We should read some more. You read some more. We should write. Oh, let's go write. We should play chess by ourselves. It sounds funny. It sounds weird, but trust me. Just let yourself be bored for 20 to 30 minutes, and you'll be surprised by where your mind goes and what your body does. Because your actions will follow where your mind takes you. If you are listening to this right now, that means you have made it to the very end of the episode, which I am truly, truly grateful for. Now, if you missed the last episode, you can check that out right here. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do that right here. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or your night, and I'll see you guys in the next one.